The way failed friendships can be remedied. It was love, is with love.
Yeah.
Just like any other relationship.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, that's how God remedied the relationship with the world.
Yeah, that's right.
By means of love.
Welcome to the Soul Renovate podcast, where longtime friends George and Jim discuss spiritual formation, soul care, and how Christian leaders can grow in abiding in Christ. Over the next several weeks, Jim and George are talking about friendship. What is it really, and why is it so important to our walks with Jesus? Let's dive in.
Hey, George.
Hey, here we are again.
Here we are again.
This is a habit. We've developed a habit.
I'm addicted to podcasting. I don't think I'm in danger of that at all.
No.
But it is good. Learn a lot.
I love podcasts. You know, they're very informative to me.
Yeah, they are.
I learn a lot, all kinds of podcasts. I listen to podcasts in different languages.
That's great.
And I'm a geek of podcasts.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I listened to one that is in French.
Yeah.
About the French language and all the rules of the French language.
Really?
Yeah.
You should have just come to me. I'm really fluent in French. Just ask my family. I don't know why there doesn't seem to be a high demand for French speakers with an East Tennessee accent.
I don't know.
I think the world should be crying for it.
Yeah.
But evidently.
Well, yeah, I had a professor in university. His name was, I can't remember his first name, but his last name was Chadbourne.
Chadbourne.
But written with the French, Bourne. And he learned French. He came from a French background, but there's no French around him. He came from your neck of the woods.
Yeah.
The backwoods.
I grew up so far in the sticks, we had to import our sticks. We were so poor we didn't have sticks.
But he had such a perfect French accent. He had a gift, like, to learn the language and to speak it perfectly, like, without any accent. I just admired him so much.
Wow.
But podcasts are very important in my own development.
Wow.
I listen to
That's awesome.
quite a bit of them.
Well, when you run out of what he's got to teach you, just give me a shout.
Yeah.
I'll pick up where he
Great,
left out.
great. So, talking about friendship again.
We are.
Friendship in the Garden of Gethsemane.
Yeah, so boy, we're entering a new portal
Yeah.
in this discussion of friendship today.
What do you do? What happens when friendships go south?
Yeah, that's right.
When friendships fail?
Yeah, and that can happen in so many different ways. And it seems like we're in a period of time now because we've been squeezed. Life has squeezed so many of us in different ways. Culture, in the church. And so one of the effects of that has been friendships have taken a lot of hits.
Yeah. There's people in our churches today that are still grieving the departure of friends.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah, that's the case.
Yeah. Is there a way back from broken friendships?
Yeah, that's right. And it's not like we have zero experience at it. I mean, I think most of us, like I can remember thinking of the guys I played ball with in high school, thinking, I'm never leaving these guys, as a 17-year-old. And now I have no idea where most of them are, and that happens. So there's a drifting because we move or we enter different seasons of life. But that's not really what we're talking about here.
No, not this natural drifting. People just going different ways. They lose track of one another. But if they meet up again, they can renew the friendship easily.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
What do we do when they fail in one way or another? And
I know this is a vulnerable question, but is there an example of that, like that you live with?
Wow. Yeah, I think that there are some examples. I wouldn't say just one. I think that, like many, I think of friendships that feel like they have failed, that maybe we didn't know how to navigate our differences.
Yeah.
I think maybe we had bought an ideal of friendship that demanded that we see some things the same. And when that began to disintegrate, then where's friendship now?
Yeah, where's friendship?
And yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's,
Yeah. Well, that happened to our friend Peter,
yeah,
a person Jesus called friend, just a few days before he went on and broke the friendship,
yeah.
failed at the friendship. Do you want to read the story of the Garden of Gethsemane?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is from Mark, the Gospel of Mark in the New Testament. I'm going to read chapter 14. I'm going to read about 10 verses.
Yeah.
Not a real long passage, but not real short either. So Jesus and his disciples, they're to give a little bit of context, you can tell things are ratcheting up at this stage in Jesus' journey with his followers. Jesus has had an experience where a woman came and anointed his feet, and he makes a comment that she's preparing me for burial.
Yeah.
So that was a cue. There's some things Jesus is saying pretty directly about what's going to be coming for him. He's given a cue to that he's going to be betrayed. And so you can't help but think this is having an effect on his disciples. So that leads us into this reading. Jesus is wanting to pray.
Yeah.
And they're in a garden that we came to be known as Gethsemane in our reading. And so this is Mark 14:32. I'm going to read to 42. It reads like this. Then they went to a place called Gethsemane, and Jesus said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." And then he took 3 of them, Peter, James, and John, with him. And Jesus became very troubled and distressed. He said to these 3 guys, "My soul is deeply grieved to the point of death. Stay here and stay alert." Going a little further, he threw himself to the ground and prayed that if it were possible, the hour would pass from him. He said, "Abba, Father, all things are possible for you. Take this cup away from me, yet not what I will, but what you will." Then he came and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, "Peter, why are you sleeping? Couldn't you stay awake for 1 hour? Stay awake and pray that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." He went away again and prayed the same thing. When he came again, he found them sleeping. They could not keep their eyes open, and they did not know what to tell him. He came a 3rd time and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and resting? Enough of this. The hour has come. Look, the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let's go. My betrayer is approaching." So there you go.
What a sobering
Yeah, what a sobering story.
story.
It's interesting to me that Jesus takes the 12 and then he chooses 3 very close friends.
The ones that were with him at the Transfiguration.
We're with him at the Transfiguration. We see him from time to time taking these 3. And he says, "Just stay here." That was his only initial request.
Yeah.
Just stay here. I've wondered if he's asking them, stay and watch because I'm about to be betrayed and I may need your protection. I need to pray.
Yeah.
I need you to stand guard.
In Matthew, I think this story is told in all 4 Gospels. I can't remember where it is. He says, "Watch and pray."
Watch and pray.
Watch and pray.
Yeah.
So he's asking them to be there for him.
Yeah.
Watch for what?
Yeah. Right.
For the arrest, like warn him when the arresters are coming.
Yeah.
And pray.
Yeah.
Pray with him.
Yeah.
Pray for him.
Yeah.
And pray for themselves.
Yeah.
Because of their trauma and their ordeal that they're going to be going through.
Yeah, that's right.
Seeing him die like that.
Yeah.
The shame of it all.
Yeah.
Did we throw our lot on the wrong person?
Right.
You know, all the confusion, the doubt.
Yeah.
Peter, just maybe a few minutes later, very short little time afterwards, is denying him.
Right.
So this is the start of Jesus' warning, pray.
Yeah. And
that you may not fall into temptation.
Yeah, that's just, he comes back and they're sleeping and he sort of says, this time, would you just pray for yourself?
Yeah.
You know, that you could do what I've asked you to do. And they know, they have to know. They weren't just stumbling and bumbling into the garden.
Yeah.
They knew things were ramping up.
Yeah.
And I think we're just given the story. We're not giving full interpretation of all that's going on. But one of the things I've thought about, George, is I think we all know that whether it's grief, they may be experiencing grief because they're starting to put the pieces together of where they are in this journey with Jesus, and it may be traumatizing for them. And I think those of us who've had even a little bit of grief and trauma, we know how exhausting that can be.
Yeah.
It can really wear you out. If you're carrying it, you feel responsible, you're not at your best.
They are in a garden, and the garden is called the Garden of Gethsemane, the Garden of Crushing.
Wow.
That's what the words mean. It's an olive grove.
Okay.
In the middle of it, there would be a press, an olive press. And you take the olives and you crush them, and the oil flows from them. And that's what you collect. An olive, you can't eat an olive fresh from the tree. You have to brine it and pickle it, but mostly used for oil, you crush it. So it wouldn't have been lost on them. The passages like Isaiah 53, where it speaks about the coming servant being crushed like that.
Wow.
So is that traumatizing to them? I mean, what do you do with it? Like at this stage, what do they? Well, how can they figure this out?
Yeah.
Like they're trying to figure it out on their own, and Jesus.
That's not good.
Jesus is warning them.
Yeah.
This is prayer time.
Yeah.
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 Watching.
Yeah,
pray.
and it's a simple request. It really is. But when we can look back at times when we've been squeezed or traumatized or carrying a lot, I think a lot of our reflections is that, that wasn't my best. Mm-hmm. And I think it's, why would we expect it would be us at our best when we're being pressed? Mm-hmm. And so that's the picture we're seeing of these guys. They're not at their best. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Jesus just offers them a very simple request.
Yeah. Like, watch and pray. And then he is grieving the grief of death. Like, he's afraid to die.
Yeah.
Whether he's referring to the death that's coming on the cross or referring to the grief that he's experiencing that's going to cause him to die prematurely.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But he's seeking their help, their
he's
support.
Hurting.
And when he needed a shoulder to cry on, They just weren't there.
There was none.
And this is the failure of friendship here. He needed a shoulder to cry on.
Yeah.
To support him, to uplift him.
Yeah.
I have no way of knowing what he might have looked like. Like he's there in the garden, he's praying, and he's beginning to sweat, tears, drops of blood from his veins. Like, what did his face look like?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Was there a look of horror? Like, is that what made them like turn away and not be able to sustain any of that?
Yeah. We've talked some about how grief can isolate us, and we can isolate ourselves.
Yeah.
Sometimes when we're grieving, but this is a situation where Jesus is grieving, and he needs them to not isolate. I need you with me.
Yeah.
And so the failure here is not on his part.
Yeah.
It's on their part. They're isolating from him.
Yeah. 'Cause they don't understand that without the cross, there's no glory.
Right.
He does.
Yeah, he does.
And the cup is getting too heavy to bear.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And, they add to that cup right then and there, that he has to carry that for them.
Yeah.
The cup of suffering.
This is a garden of crushing.
Garden of crushing. There's lots of incidents in gardens where God comes. He comes in the beginning with Adam and Eve. He comes to them.
Yeah.
And he's their friend. Jesus meets in the garden afterwards, as we're going to see in John chapter 21.
Yeah.
There's that final garden, that we are destined to inhabit.
Yeah.
But here, this is the garden of crushing.
Yeah, yeah. And so there's this sub-theme, at the epicenter is Jesus praying and sweating and crying and submitting his will. But there's also another layer here, and that is one of abandonment of his friends. They didn't run, but they just weren't what he needed.
But he invites them into this holy moment in his life.
Yeah.
Could be the holiest moment of his life.
Yeah.
Where he surrenders his will to the Father's will.
Yeah, they're just not there for him.
They're just not there.
Failure.
Yeah.
So what we're looking at is just failure.
So how do they overcome that?
Yeah.
How do you get over
Yeah.
this kind of fracturing of friendship and relationships? Well, Jesus knows how, and he extends an invitation to do that.
Yeah,
that's John chapter 21.
Yeah. Yeah, and this may be, just side note here, we're going to go to another text where we see George just introduced, but we don't want to communicate that we're taking failure in friendship lightly by trying to fix it with another story. We know this is a real thing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if we'll return back to it. We may talk in another episode or two about failure in friendship, but either way, there's a lot here. And so those, which is so many who have experienced failure in friendship.
The point of this, Peter's denial of him, he denies him 3 times. And then
it gets worse.
In this passage here, we see that Jesus is fixing that. Like, he takes it upon himself to initiate restoration of this relationship.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, let's go there.
And without that, there's no restoration.
There's no restoration.
It's
whatever else we might say.
Yeah.
We didn't want to just sprint out of that story, but we also just want to say, here's the solution. Here's the
So John 21, verses 15 to 19. Then when they had finished breakfast, again, think in terms of friendship here in this context,
Okay.
kind of being a context of friendship.
Yeah.
Just like the other context in the garden was a
Yeah.
context of friendship.
Yeah.
He takes 3 of his best friends into the holiest moment of his life, and he is present with them. They are present with him. He's having a conversation with them.
Mm-hmm.
He's expecting love and intimacy and all of that from them.
Mm-hmm.
They fail at it,
Okay.
right? Here, there's a restoration.
Now we're on the other side.
We're on the other side of it.
Crucifixion has happened.
Yeah.
The resurrection of Jesus has happened.
Yeah.
So,
When they had finished breakfast, and guess who the host is of this
Yeah.
breakfast party,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's Jesus. Yeah.
He's cooked fish for them. They've come from a night of fishing, having caught nothing, and then he comes and
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, that's pretty direct, like, do you love me more than these do? And the word he uses is agapas me. Do you love me? It's the
Deep,
word agape.
self-sacrificing love.
Yeah. He replied, yes, Lord, you know I love you. And Peter doesn't say agapa te or agapo te.
He doesn't say, I agape you.
He says philo te.
Okay.
You know,
That's friendship
I
love.
philo you.
Yeah.
Jesus told him, well, feed my lambs. See how tender that is?
Yeah.
Jesus said a second time, Simon, son of John, do you agapas me? Do you love me? He replied, yes, Lord, you know I love you. Again, uses the word philos.
Friend.
Philo, for
Friendly love.
I love you with a friendly love.
Yeah.
And Jesus told him, well, shepherd my sheep. Jesus said a third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? And Jesus now uses the word philo.
The third time he goes.
He goes to philo.
Yeah.
And Peter was distressed that Jesus asked him a third time, do you love me? He said, you know, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you, philo you.
Yeah.
Jesus replied, feed my sheep. I tell you the solemn truth that when you were young, you tied your clothes around you and went wherever you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and others will tie you up and bring you to where you do not want to go. Now, there's a comment by the writer of the book of John. Now, Jesus said this to indicate clearly by what kind of death Peter was going to glorify God.
Yeah.
After he said this, Jesus told Peter, follow me.
Huh.
Yeah.
Follow me.
So this exchange is the restoration of that broken relationship.
Yeah.
And Jesus extending his love to Peter.
It's a big moment right here.
Huge.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus is taking it upon himself. Say, my friend is broken. He has failed in his friendship to me. Can I restore that friendship?
That's good.
And he makes a point of coming to Peter.
Yeah.
Says, Peter, our friendship can resume. It doesn't need to be broken. And I'm extending love to you to spur you on.
Yeah. Do you love me?
To continue to love me in the friendship love that you have for me.
Yeah, that's good. You know, one of the things I found really interesting, George, just in reflection on this text, and I'm reading behind the text. It doesn't mean my thoughts are accurate. It's just I'm imagining something here. So I'm not necessarily right, But it's interesting to me that Jesus isn't, the silence of the story is where I'm imagining. He's not taking Peter back and say, you remember what you did in the garden? Mm-hmm. You remember when you denied me? You remember when you weren't there at the cross? Mm-hmm. I need you to make that right with me.
Yeah.
You know, I need to, Peter, I want to hear you say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know, he's not doing any of that here. Yeah. That silence was interesting to me, and I'm not sure what to do with that except wonder, like, maybe that's not what Jesus, his heart is I just want restoration. I don't need you to pay penance to me, you know. I'm sure Peter probably said some things that aren't in the scriptures to him, mm-hmm. you know, and I'm sorry may have been a part of that, you mm-hmm. know. But it's not what gets told. No. What gets told is the heart of Jesus for mm-hmm. his friend.
That's right.
And wanting to restore him. And
the language of friend that Peter keeps using.
Yeah.
And Jesus uses the word love, sacrificial love, and Peter's insisting on the word philo.
Yeah.
Is very instructive, I think.
Yeah.
It's Peter's reading sacrificial love into his friendship love to Jesus and keeps affirming it. Yes, I love you. You've called me to be your friend. Now I'm going to start loving you as the friend that you are to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's right.
And that's what Jesus is calling him back into. Some people make different things out of the progression of these verbs for love, you know. The friend love versus the agape sacrificial kind of love. But the reality is in the scriptures, these are interchangeable.
Uh-huh.
They're the same kind of love.
I think for too long maybe we've looked at the philo as kind of a weaker kind of love.
But it isn't.
No, there's a distinction about it, but it's not one of weakness.
Yeah.
To love like a friend mm-hmm. is a very high, exalted form of love. It's an honorable, ennobling.
Yeah. The way failed friendships can be remedied. It was love, is with love.
Yeah.
Just like any other relationship.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, that's how God remedied the relationship with the world.
Yeah, that's right.
By means of love.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, sometimes friendships fail. I mean, that's one of the important, things to learn from this story is that not all friendships succeed. Yeah. Sometimes they fail. Mm-hmm. But if it is within our power to do, we try to restore failed friendships, mm-hmm. if it is within our power to do.
Yeah.
Handling our fears alone with Jesus, the fears of failure that come from failure, our fears of facing pain and all of that. Mm-hmm. There's a failure on the part of Peter and James and John to do that.
Yeah.
But I think Jesus is inviting them to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not saying it in the passage, but he's saying, Peter, you can face your worst fears and failures with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he isolates him. He says, he's talking to him directly. Do you love me more than these?
Yeah.
Maybe there's something here about saying to Peter, you and me, Peter, can deal with this.
Yeah.
Because it's particular to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can do it in my presence.
Yeah.
You know, I love that he's not, I think I've already said this, so I won't belabor it, but he's not, I think sometimes when a friendship fails, I've wanted to make sure that what was broken before in the other party, or sometimes even in myself, gets fixed first. Mm-hmm. And I think that's an unreasonable way to think about another human being.
Yeah.
But to say, love can triumph here while we continue to try to grow in the way we are friends.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And
I think, there's a new start here. It's a new start, and Jesus is not holding that against him.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think that's a learning moment for us.
Yeah.
Is if you keep holding on to the wrong that has happened, there's no fixing.
There's no fixing it.
There's no restoration.
Yeah, that's right. And even if the other party does, quote, offer confession and recompense, if you're still, you could still hold on to it.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Yeah.
And it's not restored.
Yeah.
So, love is what is going to overcome.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, so.
Love is at the heart of friendship. It's at the heart of friendship of God towards us, of Jesus towards his friends who failed him.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be part of the way we do life with him today.
Yeah.
And we could teach that in our churches to such a depth that what happened during the last few years in the life of the church would never happen again.
Mm-hmm.
It need not happen again.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
We have Jesus to show us how.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, so true. There's a lot here. Jesus never fails us as a friend. Mm-hmm. And he can help us become like him in that way.
Failure is optional to us, but we do indulge in it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It seems like it's
we fail one another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he is the friend who never fails.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
He sticks closer than a brother.
Yeah, that's right. And that's what unites us as friends. Ultimately, it's that.
He is truly, as he is displayed here with Peter, a friend of sinner.
A friend of sinners. Yeah.
He's the friend of Peter who sinned deeply against him in friendship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot to think about. And maybe this is a good time, George. Not that we could guarantee having the answers, but some may have questions like about this topic.
Yeah.
What do I do in this? I mean, we don't know if we have answers that can help you, but we welcome questions, and we'll put in our show notes our email address. You can send us email, and we'll be glad to try to.
Would love to do a show down the road, like maybe at the end of the friendship series, just fielding questions and
have a Q&R session.
Yeah, have a Q&R session. Yeah,
that'd be good. Okay. Well, we're going to land the plane. Thank you, George. Friend.
Thank you.
Yeah. Looking forward to it, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Soul Renovate podcast. Any of the scriptures or resources that we mentioned in this episode will be linked in our show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a review and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app, because it really helps us to share these conversations with more Christian leaders like you. And if you have any questions you'd like Jim and George to answer, you can email us at info@soulrenovate.us. Soul Renovate is a ministry of Christ First Counseling Center, and it exists to propel Christian leaders to abide in Christ and grow in his likeness. Soul Renovate is made possible by the generous support of people like you. If you'd like to support us, you can do that on our website, soulrenovate.us. And if you'd like to learn more about Soul Renovate, you can also do that on our website, soulrenovate.us. This podcast is produced by me, Dalton Huey, with the help of Gil Hara. Our cover art was designed by Hannah Huey, and our music is by The Fox's Forest. Thanks again for listening. Till next time.